strengthening bilateral ties, while Guinea-Bissau confirmed their commitment to work with Prime Minister Hun Sen's successor. EAC News reporter Anthony Ellis has the story.
During the bilateral meeting, Prime Minister Hun Sen thanked the Prime Minister Nabin for visiting Cambodia and observing the Cambodian election process. He said he will organise an agriculture delegation to Guinea-Bissau to find out how Cambodia can help in the agriculture sector. He expressed interest in setting up an area with a canal system and a nursery to cultivate high-yielding rice and other agriculture crops. He said that during his upcoming visit to Guinea-Bissau, he would like to see agreements on a number of memorandums on agricultural cooperation, investment protection, visa waivers and other preferential agreements. He was especially interested in political consultations between the two countries to understand potential areas where the two countries could boost bilateral ties. During the meeting, Prime Minister Hun Sen also revealed plans for a post-election transfer of power to his son, General Hun Manet, to which Prime Minister Nabin promised to work with the new leader. After the meeting, an informal dinner was hosted for the Prime Minister of Guinea-Bissau and his delegation, who reported a happy and peaceful observation on Sunday's election. Anthony Ellis, EAC News.
You're watching EAC News. Thank you for joining us. Secretary General of the National Election Committee, Tep Nita, spoke approvingly of the number of people who went to the polls for the 7th National Assembly election on Sunday. He insisted that the high voter turnout showed that Cambodians understand the value of democracy, despite efforts by CPP opponents to thwart the election process. Speaking at a post-election briefing last night, Tep Nita emphasized that some people's attempts to protest Cambodia's election process was unsuccessful, although he did not name names or parties. He said, quote, "We can see that there is a movement that dissuades people from coming to the polls. There is a movement to spoil ballots, but in general, we see a lot of people coming to the polls at a high rate," end quote. Preliminary voter figures released by the NEC show that just over 8.2 million people went to the polls, representing nearly 85% of the roughly 9.7 million registered voters. While yesterday's election was largely free of incident, some polling station locations had to be moved due to groups trying to disrupt the process. Days of rain also affected some areas, where supplies had to be delivered by elephant and helicopter. Despite these minor setbacks, said NEC Chairman Praik Chan, this year's election was smooth, safe, orderly, and free of intimidation. CPP President, Prime Minister Hun Sen, released a message after the polls had closed and said that the high voter turnout proved that Cambodians love peace and development and have begun to withdraw support from the opposition Candlelight Party that was not permitted to run in this election. He associated the Candlelight Party with a, quote, extremist group and said, quote, "The number of people going to the polls this year is far greater than when the Candlelight Party joined in the last election. Now we are waiting to see how many ballots are spoiled because the leaders of the extremist group have made it very clear that spoiled ballots are ballots that support them," end quote. So far, the NEC has not been able to confirm the number of invalid ballots. While the official ballot count continues, the Secretary General of the NEC stated that invalid ballots will not affect the overall election outcome. While preliminary accounts have been witnessed all over the country, the official election results are not expected to be released until August 9th and September 4th, provided there are no irregularities or complaints. According to the NEC, the Cambodian People's Party is leading the counting process by a wide margin. Kristen Winters, EAC News. You're watching EAC News. Thank you for joining us. The day after Cambodia's 7th National Assembly election, dozens of international observers released their official accounts of their experience on Election Day. The Chinese Communist Party and international political delegations made of members from Iran, Sri Lanka, North and South Korea, and even a former U.S. Republican congressman have all given high praise to Cambodia's, quote, peaceful, transparent, and free elections. The Chinese Communist Party, or CCP, praised everything from the election to Cambodia's COVID-19 response to its continued promotion of democracy. Its statement released on July 23rd said, quote, Cambodia has always impressed us with its performance in organizing elections and promoting democracy. We have also observed that the political parties were free to run their campaigns. People are free from fear of violence and intimidation, end quote. The CCP also said that Cambodia's digital voter registration, which creates voters lists with a photo, quote, deserves applause. The CCP was among many observers who mirrored statements from the Cambodian government that interpreted the high number of voter turnout as indicating, quote, the trust and values Cambodians place in their election system, end quote. During their stay, the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs heard briefings from the Cambodian government and its National Election Committee and observed voting and ballot counting at polling stations. The ministry found, quote, the organization of the election was professional and efficient, and the campaigning, voting, and ballot counting were peaceful and orderly, end quote. It went on to say that China firmly supports Cambodian people's choice of development path that suits Cambodia's national conditions. It is believed that the election will contribute to Cambodia's democracy and sustainable economic and social development, end quote. Former U.S. Congressman Dan Burton was in Cambodia on behalf of the International Association of Parliamentarians for Peace. He was pleased to see the direction the nation had taken under the leadership of Prime Minister Hun Sen.
And this is great to see Cambodia becoming a democratic country, a democracy, and I wish we saw more of this in the world.
The centrist Asia Pacific Democrats International, formerly Christian Democrat International, includes political parties from China, North and South Korea, the Philippines, Indonesia, Russia, and Pakistan. In a press release from today, the representatives lauded the achievements of Cambodia's election, which it said were conducted in a, quote, peaceful, transparent, and free manner, end quote. A delegation from the International Conference of Asian Political Parties, headed by Mushahid Hussein Syed, was one of the first to arrive for observations and was able to see the last day of the campaign season. The organization was very impressed with what they saw, and Mr. Hussein praised the transformation of Cambodia since its civil war.
This country was the killing fields. Today they are flourishing fields and they are doing progress. So I think that the democratic system and economic progress in this country go hand in hand.
So far, none of the international observers have released any major criticism of this year's election, despite accusations from other countries and institutions that the election was effectively unopposed and stacked in the Cambodian People's Party's favor. However, the observers claim to have only been in Cambodia to ensure that the election itself was conducted in accordance with democratic standards, which they widely agree it was. Kristen Winters, EAC News. You're watching EAC News. Thank you for joining us. Electoral officials have released preliminary results showing the ruling Cambodian People's Party, led by longtime Prime Minister Hun Sen, having won 120 of the 125 parliamentary seats in Sunday's election. Official results are not expected to be released until at least August. However, reports from provincial governors show a landslide victory for the CPP, winning the majority of National Assembly seats. Meanwhile, the royalist Phun Simpek Party is estimated to have won 5 seats. Voter turnout was high this year, following government encouragement and measures such as free transportation and worker holidays to ensure people living in the provinces could return home to vote. The National Election Committee, or NEC, reported nearly 85% voter turnout, far higher than in previous elections. There were an unusually high number of spoiled ballots reported in some areas, such as Phnom Penh and other provinces. International observers from Russia, China, and Guinea-Bissau watched as Prime Minister Hun Sen and his wife, First Lady Bun Rani, went to his home precinct in Takmau to vote on Sunday. He followed regular voting procedure, held up his sealed ballot for all to see, then placed it in the ballot box before heading outside for selfies and handshakes with the media. The polls closed at 3 p.m., and counting ballots by hand began almost immediately. Within hours, initial results were released showing that longtime leader Prime Minister Hun Sen and his CPP all but guaranteed to win as he looks to secure his legacy by handing the reins to his eldest son, General Hun Manet. At age 70, the Prime Minister has suggested that he will hand over his position during the upcoming 5-year term. Recently, he hinted that the transfer of power could happen within the month. At 45 years old, General Hun Manet is currently chief of the Cambodian Army. He graduated with a bachelor's degree from U.S. Military Academy West Point, then continued his education with a master's from NYU and a PhD from Bristol University in the UK. Dozens of international observers have released their official accounts of their experience on Election Day. They were all satisfied with what they had observed and congratulated Cambodia on its path to democracy. Meanwhile, human rights groups and the U.S. Embassy have criticized the election as neither free nor fair, citing a pattern of threats and harassment against the CPP's political opponents. Many Cambodians appreciate what they see as a free and fair election. In a country that has living memories of genocide and war, some said they were happy just to vote for stability. Many who showed up to vote in Phnom Penh told EAC News that they expected the CPP to sweep all 125 seats in the parliament again. Having voted since multi-party elections began in 1993, 72-year-old Sai Saret was happy to vote for his beloved CPP to lead the country peacefully toward development.
ពេលមកបោះឆ្នោតគឺមានអារម្មណ៍សប្បាយបាទស្មារតីដោយថាខ្ញុំរើសអ្នកដឹកនាំដែលត្រឹមត្រូវដើម្បីរកសន្តិភាពធ្វើការអភិវឌ្ឍណាឆន្ទៈរបស់ខ្ញុំគឺដើម្បីជួយប្រទេសជាតិឲ្យបានរីកចម្រើនហើយបោះឆ្នោតឲ្យអ្នកដឹកនាំគឺដូចបោះឆ្នោតឲ្យខ្លួនឯងដែរដើម្បីបានខ្លួនឯងបានសុខសប្បាយបាន
Secretary of State for the Ministry of Interior, General Q. Sopiak, said that there were few reports of any protests against the elections. However, 37 people are being sought over allegations they encouraged others to spoil their ballots by sharing their own ballots marked with an X on a Telegram chat. The Prime Minister has called for them to turn themselves in. Additionally, 2 arrests were made at polling stations for the offense as well. NEC spokesperson Heng Putia told EAC News that authorities had arrested a number of individuals for causing irregularities at voting stations through spoiling their ballots. A new law passed earlier this month made discouraging others from voting a criminal offense. Those found guilty face fines and the suspension of their voting rights and ability to run for office. Kristen Winters, EAC News.
Tao lúc nè chít rịp api pipi miền tế, hai bị bạ rộp krom hôn thọt video sai toal đại miền phun được phiệp miền tế. Ở công vol, Ratika chỉ krom hôn tụt tu skol lụm đạp on tra chiết. Lỡ sẽ va cam thọt sai toal krom Campuchia, tổng rật 4K đồng bông bằng ở nơi Campuchia. Ratika ra pra upakor tụm nớp mà là bay thì lia phun được phiệp. ការផលិតតាមបច្ចេកវិទ្យាទាន់សម័យ Ratika នឹងជួយធ្វើឲ្យកម្មវិធីលោកអ្នកកាន់តែមានភាពអស្ចារ្យ លោកអ្នកនឹងបានឃើញរាល់សកម្មភាពក្នុងពិធីទៅលើកញ្ចក់ទូរទស្សន៍ទំហំធំកម្រិត 4K និងការបញ្ចាំងលើផ្ទាំងក្រណាត់សព្រមទាំង LED ដែលមានរូបភាពច្បាស់ត្រជាក់ភ្នែក សូមអញ្ជើញកក់ពីឥឡូវនេះតាមរយៈលេខទូរស័ព្ទ 012 823 848 017 838 889 និង 016 823 848 Ratika ទំនុកចិត្តការទទួលខុសត្រូវនិងគុណភាពខ្ពស់ Ratika Entertainment ក្រុមតន្ត្រីអាជីពកំសាន្តបែបស្រាលពីរោះមិនថ្លង់ភ្ញៀវរំភើបចិត្តពិធីរឹតតែអស្ចារ្យ Relax Ratika Entertainment ញ៉ាំងឲ្យកម្មវិធីលោកអ្នកកាន់តែមានភាពអធិកអធម Ratika Entertainment ក្រុមតន្ត្រីដ៏ល្អសម្រាប់ក្រុមគ្រួសារលោកអ្នក សូមអញ្ជើញកក់ពីឥឡូវនេះសម្រាប់កម្មវិធីលោកអ្នកតាមរយៈលេខទូរស័ព្ទ 017 838 889 012 823 848 និង 016 823 848
If it's happening and you need to know about it, you'll get it all right here. EAC News brings you updates and breaking news in English across all of our platforms and channels. The EAC News app, YouTube, Facebook, Telegram, Twitter, and our website www.eacnews.asia. EAC News' passionate team of reporters, writers, cameramen, and video editors are hard at work around the clock, bringing you world-class reports on everything from local and regional news to the latest international stories and the most dramatic footage from around the world. It takes meetings, research, phone calls, and emails. And that's before we even get out of the newsroom and onto the set.
I'm Anthony Ellis, a news reporter for EAC News. Thanks for watching.
Odeon Tourist, China. I'm Kristen Winters. I'm a news reporter with EAC News. Thank you for watching.
I'm Darshana Gauchan, EAC News reporter. Thanks for watching us.
I'm Dekha Nim, Sales and Marketing Manager at EAC News. Thank you for joining us.
I am Honsre Ward, EAC News Channel Manager. Thank you for watching us.
EAC News, English language news show, Cambodia's most comprehensive, the Daily Roundup on the EAC News channel.